The clock struck midnight. Inside Blackridge Penitentiary, a high-security prison built to contain the world's most dangerous criminals, alarms were silent, until they weren't. A shrill siren shattered the night as red warning lights flashed across the prison corridors. Guards scrambled, shouting into their radios, their boots thudding against the cold concrete floors. He was gone. The name Gabriel, the Phantom. Kane sent chills through the spines of law enforcement officers. He wasn't just another convict. He was a genius, a manipulator, and a monster wrapped in one. Convicted of murder, conspiracy, and orchestrating heists from inside prison walls, Gabriel had spent 7 years in solitary confinement. Until tonight, the escape was flawless security footage later revealed a shocking truth. He never forced his way out. There was no bloody brawl, no gunfight. Instead, Kane had simply walked out, slipping past the guards like a ghost in the night. Some believed he had help from the inside. Others whispered that he had predicted every security protocol, every blind spot, every human weakness. But how inside the warden's office, officials reviewed the footage in horror. The last image showed a prison guard unlocking his cell. But the guard didn't look afraid. He looked entranced, as if under a spell. Kane had done what he did best, broken a man's mind before breaking out of prison. Within minutes, Blackridge was on full lockdown. Helicopters took to the skies, floodlights scanned the perimeters, and hundreds of officers were dispatched to track him down. But Kane had already vanished. The city was on edge. A killer was loose, and no one knew where he would strike next. But what authorities didn't know was that somewhere, miles away, another escape had just begun. A young woman, desperate and terrified, was running for her life. And soon, the intelligence agencies would realize a terrifying truth. Gabriel Kane wasn't escaping alone. The rain poured relentlessly, drumming against the iron bars of Ravenhill Psychiatric Institute. Nestled deep within the woods, this facility was not just for the mentally ill. It was a place where secrets were buried. And tonight, one of those secrets was about to escape in room 306. A young woman named Elena Graves sat still, her fingers tracing the cracks in the wall. She had been in Ravenhill for 4 years, though she was never insane. The world had put her here, labeling her dangerous, unstable, a liability. But Elena had always known the truth. Ravenhill wasn't a hospital, it was a prison, and tonight she was leaving. Unlike Gabriel Kane's methodical, almost surgical escape from Blackridge, Elena's was violent. At 11:57 p.m., just minutes before the sirens blared at Blackridge, a deafening explosion rocked Ravenhill. The force shattered windows, sent ceiling tiles crashing to the floor, and left the entire West Wing in flames, smoke, screams, chaos. Elena moved fast. Dressed in a hospital gown, she slipped through the smoke-filled hallways, stepping over unconscious orderlies. The security cameras were fried, the electronic doors useless. As she reached the main exit, a voice called out Elena. She froze Dr. Wallace. The man who had kept her caged, drugged, silenced, stood in the hallway, bleeding from a gash on his forehead. His eyes were wide, more with fear than pain. You weren't supposed to get out," he whispered. Elena tilted her head, a small smile forming. "You should have thought about that before you locked me in here." Without hesitation, she stepped forward and plunged a syringe into his neck. His body tensed before he collapsed, motionless. She exhaled sharply. No more walls, no more drugs, no more control. As the building continued to burn, Elena disappeared into the woods. The world believed she was broken, but they were wrong. She wasn't running, she was hunting. And soon the intelligence agencies tracking Gabriel Kane would realize they had 2 fugitives on the loose. By 6 a.m., the world was waking up to breaking news. 2 high-security facilities had suffered catastrophic breaches on the same night Gabriel Kane, a convicted murderer and criminal mastermind, had vanished from Blackridge Penitentiary without a trace. Meanwhile, Elena Graves, an allegedly unstable but highly intelligent patient, had fled Ravenhill Psychiatric Institute after a calculated explosion. Coincidence? The intelligence agencies didn't believe in coincidences. Inside a classified operations center, Director Marcus Holloway of the National Intelligence Bureau, NIB, stood before a war room of analysts, agents, and forensic specialists. The air was thick with urgency. Satellite images, facility blueprints, and red-marked photographs covered the monitors. Two of the most dangerous people in the country are now ghosts, Holloway growled, his fingers gripping the edge of the table. And I want to know how the hell this happened. An analyst cleared her throat. Sir, Gabriel Kane's escape was surgical. She tapped on a tablet, showing prison footage. There were no alarms until he was already outside. He knew the system better than we did. And Graves? Holloway demanded. A second analyst pulled up Ravenhill's security logs. The explosion took out every single surveillance camera. She planned this. It wasn't a desperate escape. It was a tactical strike. The room fell silent. One escape was a crisis. Two, on the same night, suggested coordination. Are they working together? An agent asked, breaking the silence. That was the terrifying question. There were no known links between Kane and Graves, no shared history, no recorded interactions. But both had one thing in common. They weren't just escapees. They were masterminds. Put every satellite, every informant, every surveillance program on them, Holloway ordered. His jaw clenched. This wasn't just a manhunt anymore. This was a war. He turned to the lead profiler. Tell me, what's their endgame? The profiler exhaled, staring at the screens. Sir, if these two are connected, then whatever they're planning, we won't see it coming. The sun had barely risen when the largest manhunt in the country's history was launched. Every federal agency, every state trooper, and every tactical unit was mobilized. Helicopters sliced through the sky. Surveillance drones hovered over highways, and checkpoints were set up on every major road. The orders were clear: capture them at any cost. Gabriel Kane was last seen near the eastern perimeter of Blackridge, where tire tracks suggested he had a vehicle waiting. Security footage from a nearby gas station showed a masked man abandoning a stolen police cruiser. By the time officers arrived, the car was empty. Kane had vanished once again. Elena Graves, on the other hand, left a trail of destruction. A psychiatric nurse was found unconscious in an abandoned farmhouse, her car missing. Traffic cameras picked up a vehicle matching its description speeding down Route 47, heading toward the city. We have a sighting, an agent's voice crackled through the comms. Suspect spotted near the Westwood Bridge, 10:43 a.m., Westwood Bridge. The first confrontation came fast. A team of armed agents in unmarked SUVs screeched onto the bridge, blocking both exits. The stolen car skidded to a stop inside. Elena sat motionless, her fingers gripping the steering wheel. Step out of the vehicle. Hands where we can see them, a federal officer shouted through a megaphone. But Elena didn't move. The agents advanced cautiously, weapons raised. Just as they reached the car, boom! A deafening explosion sent flames into the air, flipping one of the SUVs. The force sent agents sprawling, and in the chaos, Elena was gone. Meanwhile, 200 miles away. In a quiet roadside diner, a man in a dark hoodie and sunglasses sipped his coffee. Gabriel Kane. He watched the news unfold on a small TV screen in the corner, a smirk forming as he saw Elena's escape. He pulled out a burner phone, dialed a number, and spoke just one sentence before tossing it in the trash. I'll see you soon. The game had begun. Inside the National Intelligence Bureau, NIB headquarters, Director Marcus Holloway stood motionless, staring at the classified file in his hands. His blood ran cold. It was never a coincidence. Gabriel Kane and Elena Graves were connected. A junior analyst rushed into the war room, breathless. Sir, you need to see this. She placed a faded photograph on the table. It showed a young boy and a girl, no older than 10, standing side by side in front of a rundown orphanage. Their faces were solemn, eyes hollow with pain. Gabriel Kane. Elena Graves' Holloway's grip tightened. They were siblings. A dark past. 20 years ago, the Graves orphanage was exposed for horrific experiments on children. Illegal psychological conditioning, forced medical trials, and brutal survival tests. The government had quietly shut it down, erasing every trace. The surviving children were either adopted, institutionalized, or disappeared. Gabriel and Elena were among those who disappeared. The record showed that Gabriel escaped first at age 14, vanishing into the streets. He spent the next 2 decades building a life of crime, perfecting his ability to manipulate, control, and outthink everyone. Elena wasn't so lucky. At age 12, she was transferred to a classified government program where she spent years being studied and controlled. Official reports labeled her unstable, but the truth was worse. She was trained, conditioned, weaponized, until she escaped the real motive. "They're not just fugitives," Holloway whispered. "They're on a mission." A second analyst pulled up recent break-ins at classified intelligence sites. Sensitive government data had been stolen, files related to the orphanage and its secret projects. "They're not running," she said. "They're looking for revenge." A chilling silence filled the room. For years, the government had buried Graves' orphanage and 2 of those victims had returned, and they